Hey everybody, this is Dan back with another video, and today I thought we'd do something just a little bit different. This was a video that was in my recommended feed, and it's called "It Started the Reverse Housing Crash of 2023." It's going to show some statistics here of the housing market, and I thought this will be interesting to go through. I want to give my perspective, just in my local markets from what we're seeing, and get some insight as far as where the market is right now compared to where it has been, and where we think it might be headed here in the future. So this is Graham Stephan, and so I'm going to go ahead and subscribe to his channel. Appreciate that. And so let's go ahead and see what he has to say. And I'm going to be pausing it to give my perspective here based on what I'm seeing with my clients in our local Wisconsin market as well.
What's up, Graham? It's Guys here. So when it comes to the housing market, we have some good news and some bad news, because in the last 30 days, despite ever-increasing mortgage rates and home prices falling by the largest amount since 2011, new forecasts now show that there's a higher likelihood of prices beginning to rise throughout.
I don't think home values have been falling around here at all. I know they kind of slowed in their gain, maybe a little bit in 2022. They went down, but that was a very short period of time, and they've been doing pretty well here lately.
The rest of the year. And even though this sounds like a crazy episode of The Twilight Zone, experts are also beginning to warn of a new housing problem that's beginning to affect the entire market, creating almost like a reverse crash depending on where you live. That's why we got to discuss exactly what's happening, the latest data that was just released, the largest price changes depending on your location, and why this Las Vegas property company renamed their streets after Pokemon as soon as you hit the like button and subscribe, because it helps out the entire channel tremendously. And
Can we do that? Can we name our streets after whatever we want? I wonder. I'll have to get in touch with the town on that one.
takes just a split second if you haven't done that already. So thank you guys so much for doing that, and also big thank you to Rocket Money for sponsoring this video, but more on that later. Alright, so before we go into the precise numbers, all of this really begins with a very underrated aspect of the housing market, and that would be seasonality. See, even though housing prices generally trend higher in the long run, once you begin looking closer, you'll begin to see that there are consistent, predictable price swings that happen on a regular basis. And as
that makes sense, right? Certainly in states where we have more predominant seasons, we get pretty cold winters up here in Wisconsin. We get some snow. There's obviously some nice things about that too. But it can impact buyers for many different reasons. A lot of people would prefer to move when the weather is nice out, and just for the simple fact that they don't want to have to deal with the potential cold and bad weather. It's tougher to find people if you're looking for help. People would much prefer to go out there and be moving stuff in the summer compared to the winter. But the main thing here too is, and everywhere, not just here, is schools. If somebody has a family, during the spring and summer, that's when they're going to be most active if they're really trying to find a home, just for the fact that, if they want to stay in a particular school district, or maybe they're going to move and they have different locations and it's not just one school district that they could be in, they want to get all those things set up so that they know exactly where their kids are going to be going to school this next year and get them registered and things like that. So that can have a huge impact on, how many homes are sold in a certain period of time of the year. Absolutely.
As you're about to see, we are in the middle, right now, of one of the busiest times to buy a house. According to the National Association of Realtors, data from the last 3 decades suggests that buyers are more likely to move and buy a house throughout the spring and summer, leading to a mid-year feeding frenzy of homes that drives prices upwards. Now, even though most seasonal pricing tends to lead to a sales price difference of 8 to 12% off the peak, some locations like the Northeast and Great Lakes lead the nation with a 22.1% variation between summer and winter sales prices, which means right now is probably going to be the most competitive it's going to be throughout the entire year to buy a home, with just under 70% of all sales activity taking place in just a few of these busiest months. Although speaking of getting
Again, that is true, and it's just such a different year here, and there's always going to be weird things, every year. Obviously, we just came off of COVID for a couple of years, and now after that, everybody's out and about. Um, you know, and there's just not that much inventory right now, and that's the biggest problem, right? When a nice home comes up for sale, there's still buyers, even with the rates being higher right now, that are ready to move, but there's just not as many sellers willing to put their house on the market, because if they do have a nice low interest rate that they were able to get during, 2020 and 2021, they might feel trapped in their homes right now. And so there's just not as much inventory coming out because people typically know that there's more buyers in the summer, and sellers would maybe wait to list their home until, we get to the spring or summer months because they know there's going to be more buyers, more activity. Maybe they'll get more offers driving that home value up. But again, it's been a crazy year, so that's not exactly true as of right now.
Homes under contract, here's where things take a rather unexpected turn. Despite nearly one-third of homes selling over asking price, the average home receiving 3.3 offers, and 25% of the market bringing in all-cash deals, home prices have fallen last month for the first time in 6 years. Except this trend downwards is about to get a lot more complicated.
And again, that's nationally, I'm assuming, where he's getting their statistics from, because around here, home values are still doing very well. So it's always good to know your local market and ask your realtor, to get the comps for you, and you should be able to see, what home values have been doing in your area. Because I've still seen, a very good demand for homes, and a lot of clients still going in a lot of times above asking price right now.
It's simply because the number of homes on the market is shrinking really fast. The chief economist at Realtor.com was quoted as saying that this week marks the first time that there were fewer active listings compared to a year ago in more than a year, which is a key reason why home prices have barely budged since the peak. In fact, what's remarkable is that new listings were down 29% this week from a year ago, despite a recent uptick in seller confidence. Meaning, even though sellers are getting a lot more optimistic about the value of their home, they're still refusing to move. All of this at the core really.
Well, I mean, exactly, right? Because yeah, they can sell their house if they want, and they would probably get a good value, especially, with what home values were doing over the past 4 years. But what does that mean? If they're selling a home just to buy another house in the same market, you get the benefit on the sale, but then you have to maybe pay a little bit more on the purchase. And again, do they want to give up if they were, able to refinance and get a nice low rate? They're going to have to give that up in order to buy a new home. And so, yeah, you're going to get a good amount. And, the scary thing could be too, is that, there's a lot of property investors out there right now as well. And what other people might be doing, saying, okay, well, I've got this house with a nice low rate, in a regular market, maybe they would sell their home, take the proceeds out and use some of that for the down payment of a new home. But what could be happening here more often is that rather than selling their home, these sellers might decide to keep their current home as an investment property because they have such a low rate, on that loan that they took out, and they don't want to give that up. So even once they're ready to go and purchase a new home, they might not, that home that would typically have been another home on the market for buyers, may be kept as an investment property now. And again, maybe not as many homes coming on the market, even when rates do start to come down. Now, I do think once rates do come down enough, then we will see sellers that are going to be, willing to sell their house. They want to pull their equity out. They want to reduce their payment of their new home. So, people buying right now may still be keeping that other property at this time. But then, hopefully at some point we see these mortgage rates come down. That will, again, cause the sellers to feel better about selling and paying off the current loan that they have. But, caution when that happens as well, because I don't think that's also all of a sudden going to flood the market with homes and it's going to be a huge buyer's market, because there's a lot of buyers that are waiting on the sidelines right now too, that, once these rates come down, and maybe it's for different reasons. Maybe they just don't want their payment to be so high. Maybe they can't get approved for as much of a home as they want to right now because rates are higher, so it's limiting their buying power. So I think there's also going to be a lot more buyers that are going to be creeping out and looking for homes too once these rates do start to come down.
It really comes down to what's called months supply of inventory, which simply refers to the number of months it would take for all the inventory to sell at current levels. So for example, if there's 1,000 homes on the market, with 200 homes being sold on a monthly basis, you would have a 5-month supply. Generally, the rule of thumb when it comes to this is that if there's more than 6 months of inventory on the market, it's a buyer's market, whereas if there's less than 6 months, it's a seller's market. Although today, the numbers are heavily skewed towards the seller. A recent report from Realtor.com found that the number of homes on the market in June was down more than 47% from the typical amount pre-COVID. And for existing homes on the market, current inventory stands at just 2.6 months worth of supply. Because of that, home builders are beginning to fill the void, with new constructions now making up 1/3 of the total market inventory compared to just 13% in the years 2000 to 2019.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of my clients too that are coming to me, I get a lot of clients coming to me looking to purchase new homes, which makes sense because when there's not much inventory out there, if a client really has to have certain things with the home, it can be really tough. And if that perfect home comes out, there's probably other people that are looking for some of the same things, and it can be tough to get an accepted offer. And so, with all those things, being as they are, a lot of clients are going to these builders, maybe putting their name on a list, willing to wait a little bit, saying, "Hey, you know what? Maybe rates will come down in the meantime, maybe not." But yeah, there's a lot of people that are looking to purchase new homes again because there's not as much inventory with existing homes.
In other words, home prices are effectively crashing upwards just because there's so few properties on the market in the first place. And all of this is simply because of a term called the lock-in effect. The fact is, 92% of homes with a mortgage have a rate below 6% and 62% have a rate below 4%. So instead of selling and being forced to take out a mortgage at a much higher rate, sellers are choosing to stay put with golden handcuffs, and as a result, fewer homes are sold. As proof of this,
Right. And that's what I was just talking about too. People not willing to go and buy a new house and sell their current home because a lot of people do need the equity out of their current home in order to purchase a new home. And I'm not asking anybody to feel bad for, somebody that owns a home and has a low rate and they're like, oh, I can't move. It's just terrible. No, they're in a good position and that's great. But, it's still reality that, their thoughts are, well, I really can't afford to do anything else. Maybe they, in a normal market, would like to purchase a house in a slightly different area, maybe a little bit larger home or downsizing, whatever it might be. But the matter of fact is that when they have the low rates, you know, they don't even want to think about this because their payments are going to be increasing so much if they have to take out a new loan in this rate environment compared to the rate that they have right now and the payment that they're used to on their current home.
a separate study found that just over 27% of sellers who are considering listing their home in the next year would feel a lot more urgency to sell if rates dropped to 5% or below, and 49% would be likely to list if rates were to drop to 4%. On top of that,
And we could be a ways out from that. I mean, certainly it's wishful thinking. I'm hoping that that does happen. I mean, right now it's crazy to think that we're saying this. If you would have told me back in 2020 or 21 that I wish rates were 5%, you know, I think that sounds like crazy talk. But right now it's so true. And it's going to take a little bit to get there. We'll see. It's an election year this next year. The markets usually shake up during that. Inflation's been the number one enemy of mortgage rates here over the past couple of years. And so we've been dealing with that and the impact on the Fed's raising the Fed funds rate to try and fight inflation. So all those things are happening right now. And I hope that rates do come down, back to 5% into fours. I mean, it'll take some time for that to happen, but, it certainly is possible. And I think at some point it will. And we'll just have to kind of hold our breaths to see when that'll happen.
existing mortgage rates are also found to matter a lot. For example, someone with an existing mortgage at 2.5% to 3.5% would be much more likely not to sell than someone with a 5% mortgage. Not to mention, 60% of homeowners with a mortgage have only lived in their home for 4 years or less. So with the average length of homeownership at 13.2 years, statistically, we still have a long ways to go until those people begin to sell, especially.
And that's true. People with these low rates, and that could be increasing too, as far as the length of time that a person has the mortgage, especially when they have a rate, that's 3% or less. If they just said it's 12 or 13 years, people could be hanging on to those loans for a lot longer than would have been typically the average.
Especially with high mortgage rates keeping 1 in 7 homeowners from letting go of their home. This is why home prices.
And that seems even low. I would have thought it was even more than that.
nationally have barely fallen despite mortgage rates having skyrocketed. It's also why this is the second time since last August the sale to list price ratios hit 100%, meaning the average home is selling for exactly the price it's listed for. Now, anecdotally, when it comes to interest rates, I also tend to fall into this exact same category as well. I currently have 5 outstanding mortgages fixed for 30 years between 2.8 and 3.5%. If I were to sell to rebuy something else, I'd have to pay some.
My name's Jorge Gaviria, and
I think that's probably a good spot to end it as well. So again, I just wanted to show everybody. So this again was Graham Stephan or Graham Stephan, and it was nice kind of watching that video. And I think those are really good points and facts that he was pointing out there too. So again, we're gonna support Graham with his video that he's done there. And it's always good things to think about. Nobody knows exactly what the market's going to be doing here in the future. Anything can happen. Things can change so quickly in the markets. As I mentioned, the election year could shake some things up for us as well. Personally, I still think it's a great time to purchase a house. I do believe that, and it's because I think home values are still in a good place financially. There's a lot of different reasons that people are going to be looking to purchase a home, and just to have something for themselves, the family. But as an investment, I personally believe, my opinion, that it's still a great time because once these interest rates do start to come down, as I mentioned before, I think that's only going to cause more buyers to be out there and create more demand for homes. And again, sellers, yes, you hopefully will see some more homes being listed on the market for the sellers that do have to pull their equity out in order to purchase a new home. But there could be sellers that are in that position where they don't have to. Maybe they have some other funds that they can use for a down payment. And people that were never thinking about being property investors in the future might say, you know what, let's just hang on to this home right now that we have and rent it out. And so the demand for homes, I think, is only going to continue to increase over time, and especially if mortgage rates do come down. Yes, more supply, but also I think more demand as well in the future. So I thought that was kind of fun doing that. Let me know what you guys think if you enjoyed, looking at another video and talking about it. Let me know what you guys think. What other thoughts do you have as far as where you see the market headed? In your local market, what's going on? Is there still few homes listed as we're seeing in most areas? And if you ever have any questions, feel free to reach out to me here anytime. I appreciate you all tuning in here today. Hope you have a great day.